Hello and welcome to the Cryptocurrency News channel. So today we're going to actually talk about an interesting topic. If you want to join me on my live stream, the link is in the description in the comments. But the thing is, how much adoption is enough or mass adoption to get the price going? Because people are saying we don't have adoption. I'm saying no, adoption's already here. People are already using VET, XRP, and other cryptocurrencies. But how much is actually enough? The thing is, it takes a large amount of adoption to actually move price, and that's why speculation is probably going to drive price in the next bull run. Think about it. I mean, how much adoption, how much transfer of money does XRP actually need to have to actually move up in price? I think Susan Athey basically kind of calculated, and she says we basically need like tens of billions to actually drive price up. I don't know if it's really that much because I think people will speculate on it and it will actually go up for tens of billions. But if you really think about it, we know that around 10 million does nothing for the price because we've had 5 or 10 million days did absolutely nothing for the price. Will 100 million do something for the price? At its current price, 100 million will mean that there's going to be about 500 million XRP changing hands. Now, XRP transactions take like a couple of seconds. If you actually go with the buy and sell thing, it actually takes about a minute or so for all the for everything to actually go through from the buying to the transaction to the selling. That takes about a minute. But once that minute is up, you can actually use the same XRP for the same transactions over and over again. If you basically do it on direct volume and hoping that you run out of XRP, that's never going to happen. You would probably need trillions or tens of trillions, if even that, because the velocity is extremely fast. So the main thing that is actually going to do it is certain exchanges will actually need to hold the amount of XRP so they don't actually run out. Now, technically they could ping it from anywhere in the world, but I don't think realistically that system's actually going to work. I do think that they're going to have stores of XRP at the exchanges. And that's basically with exchanges that don't have direct USD Euro pairs. Like Binance actually has a direct USD Euro pair, I believe, or they hold both USD and Euro. So you can actually just trade USD for Euro at Binance if they have both USD and Euro there. But for a lot of quarters, that doesn't exist. How much is actually enough to actually get price up? If you have 100 million, which is about 10 times or more than 10 times the current volume right now, you would actually, I don't know if that's enough because that only requires 500 million XRP, and you probably need to hold about at least a day's worth of supply at the exchanges. So 500 million XRPs transacting hands, and then you would need to hold about 500 million at the exchanges, and that would actually take 500 million out of the supply. But there's there's 99 billion. There's about 42 billion right now out there in the wild. So you're talking about 2%, actually 1%, even at 100 million in terms of volume. And I'm not really sure how fast we're going to reach that. Yes, we had explosive XRP growth for the first couple of months in terms of ODL, but right now, maybe because of the pandemic, maybe because of other things, it's actually slowed down. So I don't think we're going to get to 100 million by the end of this year. I think it'll be nice if we can get to 100 million by the end of next year, possibly 2022, because the volume, a lot of people expected exponential growth in terms of ODL volume. Some people expected linear growth. I actually think it's going to be like a curve growth. The initial adoption was really big, and a lot of people jumped in. But now that you've hit a lot of the major remittance companies, you actually have to get the banks to actually sign on, and that's a very much harder process. You might get some of the smaller ones before some of the bigger ones actually start testing with small corridors. We know that Japan actually has the crypto regulation, and some countries already have the crypto regulation, but that doesn't mean they're automatically going to adopt. So 100 million is probably going to take at least 2 years or so to actually get to 100 million. And even at 100 million per day, you might actually not be able to affect the price, because that's really 1% of that exchanges need to hold. And taking out 1% of supply may not actually affect crypto that much. Now, I know that a lot of the XRP is actually being held, but there's also 50 billion left that's kind of an escrow that they can actually release to alleviate supply problems. So the thing is, I actually think you need a number in the billions at least in terms of dollars of XRP. I think you need a number in the billions at least in terms of dollars transacted per ODL per day to actually have any effect on the price. I don't think tens of millions are going to be enough. We kind of have a clue that that's not. I don't think hundreds of millions are going to be enough. I think you need billions, and you basically need 50, 60 times what it is right now, and that's going to take a long time to grow. And it's not going to come all of a sudden. There is no random light switch that he's going to flip. People have been talking about that for a long time, but that's all bullcrap. I mean, they've mentioned several days for it. None of it's even close to be right. There is no famous light switch, not all the banks are going to coordinate on the same day. You can tell that like, like Transfer2 and MoneyGram, they didn't coordinate. They're not like, they didn't actually do it all on the same day. But they'll slowly come on one by one, and they're only going to use it for some corridors. So I do think it's going to take get to billions. It's probably going to take several years to get there. And even at a few billion, it's going to affect the price nominally. Like maybe when we get to like 5 or 6 billion, you can have like $1.50 XRP consistently without like a hyper pump. So I do believe there's like a lot of there's actually quite a lot of chance for XRP to actually grow in price because of utility, but it's not going to come as fast or as sudden as people think. It's not like going to be a light switch. It's going to be a very slow progression, and you're seeing that in terms of ODL adoption right now. You have like 1 or 2 million the first month, maybe 2 to 4 million like 2 or 3 months later, that as we saw, and now it's up to like 6-10 million about a year later, after like about a year later, almost a year after MoneyGram actually signed. It's going to be like a year and like 2 months or something like that. So you're seeing like slow adoption come on. Like I've always said, the adoption is going to be very slow. There's no light switch. All that stuff was just made up to get people actually excited. Now, what about VET? Now, VET, I have a number. It's like 37 million VETH burn per day. We're at about 3 million per day if you actually look at, maybe 4 million if you look at the curve graph. So we need 10x. Now, Sonny did say we would have 5 to 10x by the end of this year, but that was without the pandemic. With the pandemic, I don't think we're getting there. And without us getting there, I mean, I think it's going to take another year at least. So VET, in terms of utility, I think it's going to take at least another year and a half before, if we're lucky, before utility actually starts kicking up the price. How much utility will affect the price? That's really hard to say. With this game thing that they're developing, like virtual 3D world or whatever, if that actually explodes in July, that can really pump up VET price. But you need food gates to come on. You need them to actually test and adopt more foods. You need the Walmart Sam's Club to do more than just like quail eggs and mushrooms right now, which is what they're doing. And you need like Da Vinci and all these other fashion brands to actually adopt more. After 37 million, I don't really have a clear number of like what it would take to push VET up. I would assume that if you actually go up to like 74 million, you would at least force a double of the price. But like the price being at half a penny right now, if you go on that linear route, you're going to be waiting years as well before VET can solidly get to 5 or 10 cents. Now that's like 10x return, so it's not too bad. So you're going to be depending on speculation. But I'm thinking like in terms of VETH burn to really affect the price, I'm thinking probably 3 or 4 years out as well, maybe like 2-3 years out, because I do think it'll affect, I think VET's like VETH burn will affect prices before XRP's ODL, but it's not really a short-term process either, especially with the coronavirus. And like things that hamper trade like the coronavirus will affect VET more than other cryptos, unfortunately. Now, what about other things like Cardano or Ethereum? We don't really have a good number for those. I mean, Ethereum just can't scale right now, so like that's why they push the transaction prices up, and that's not really a good thing because people are just going to switch off of Ethereum if they do that. The thing is, like, you need Ethereum to actually pay gas costs, and I think there's going to be a lot of competition for there's going to be a lot of competition for Ethereum to hold Ethereum because of apps. But right now, the only real Ethereum apps are being used are DEXs and those DeFi things, and that's not enough. So even at today's adoption rate, even for like something like Ethereum, or if like ICX gets adopted, maybe the Korean government will speed that up. But even if Ethereum gets adopted, or like Cardano, which takes over Ethereum, I do think it's going to take at least a few years for these moon prices based on utility. Now, speculation is a different story. People can speculate it up at any time. But the thing is, like, how much is enough? How much utility is enough? I think for any blockchain right now, whether it's XRP, VET, Cardano, or Ethereum, I think the usage rate actually needs to be at least 15 times right now, the maximum usage rate on a good day right now for it to really affect price. So we still have a long time to go. I think for XRP, it's actually more like 50, 60 times. For VET, it's probably like 10 or 15. For Cardano and Ethereum, I'm going to guess it's 10 plus as well. So for each of these cryptos, you actually need a massive increase in utility. Like your little increase in like a 50% increase in utility isn't going to affect the price for any of these coins. You need like a 1500% increase in utility or even more. So that's kind of my view on it. Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, and hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.